Hi, Andy Biggs from Arizona's 5th Congressional District. I'm here with Matt Gaetz from lovely Florida. Matt, this week we're going to be dealing with the second bogus impeachment by the Democrats who want to erase the legacy of President Donald J. Trump. What's happening?
Well, Andy, it feels like we've been here before. The Democrats obsessed with President Trump in the absence of any agenda for the American people, and yet again, the law's against him. The facts are against them, and yet they move forward with this entirely political exercise.
That's exactly right. It is so bogus, ladies and gentlemen, that Chief Justice John Roberts, who is constitutionally required to preside over an impeachment hearing, has refused to come. How can it get any more illegitimate than that?
Well, unfortunately, the Democrats are just using impeachment as the new political tool. You know, impeachment was something that was really reserved for high crimes and misdemeanors. Now it is being deployed when you don't like what the president has said, whether that's to a foreign leader or during a speech. And I think that getting into the factual elements of the president's actual remarks will provide the greatest lift for his defense. He wanted people to be peaceful and patriotic. Those who breached the Capitol were neither. And if we're going to get into the business of blaming politicians for their statements that, unbeknownst to them, cause harm to others, where's the impeachment of Bernie Sanders? I mean, he had someone that was one of his followers that was out there shooting at Republicans on the baseball team. So, you know, I think that we've got to apply a little sanity here. And I also think that we've already seen the acquittal thanks to the brilliance of Rand Paul. You know, Rand Paul forced senators to take a vote. My assessment is that an acquittal is a legal certainty now, and yet this is all just about sort of the imagery of yet another impeachment.
Well, it is all because they hate Donald J. Trump more than they love this country, in my opinion. And he did a great job, and they want to erase all of the success that he had. I mean, that's why we've had so many Joseph Biden executive orders. But I want to ask you a question, too. Schumer has already said, because he's anticipating, as you say, there's going to be an acquittal at this trial for the impeachment. But he's already said, I'm okay with now moving to censure if we don't get the conviction.
Yeah, sort of impeachment light.
Exactly.
You know, if impeachment's not the right thing for you, maybe impeachment light. When will these people stop focusing on Donald Trump and start focusing on the American people? You know, here you've got Democrats, I think, unwilling to work with Republicans on any sort of coronavirus response. They're slashing away at the reforms to our immigration system that you and I advised President Trump on closely. We saw the positive impact at the border from President Trump's actions. They're trying to do away with that. You know, when are these people actually going to build something up rather than just seeking to tear everything down and destroy and restart and then try to slander the president?
Well, I don't think it's going to end anytime soon. Not until their donors and their base says, you know, we've really had enough. But, you know, Matt, we're going to be here next week, you and I. We're going to be reporting to these people as often as we can about what's happening. I want to thank my very good friend, Congressman Matt Gaetz from Florida, beautiful Florida, second in duty only to suburban Phoenix, which is what I represent. So I appreciate everything you do, your leadership on this thing. Because, you know, at some point they'll read the Constitution and say, oh, we can't impeach a former president. We can only impeach a president. But they aren't going to buy it.
Well, I think here the factual elements of what the president actually said will ultimately vindicate him more than any jurisdictional issue. And, you know, to get into the weeds, you know, I look at the defense as it's being laid out, and we've had the chance to chat with the president's defense lawyers. I would focus more on the president and his actions than like the technicalities of how this stuff was drawn up. You and I both know this was impeachment by reflex. They were in there writing this thing kind of as they were voting on it, just about. And so it is not a precise document. It is not a legally sufficient document. But it's my sense that the statements of the president, his actions, the evidence that we now have that the violence predated even the remarks that he gave, that ought to render an acquittal. But to me, Andy, this is as much about the Republicans as it is about the Democrats. I mean, we already know in the last bogus impeachment that they are so vicious and so negative that they'd impeach President Trump for his tweets, for owning Mar-a-Lago, for having the Trump Hotel in Washington. I'm going to be watching what this says about Republicans. You and I are fighting every day in this town to make sure that the America First mantra survives within our party. And we see that while that's very popular out in the country, Here inside the 8 square miles of Washington, D.C., the establishment is trying to reconstitute power. And I think some of those establishment Republicans might try to use this impeachment trial not just to try to smear the president, but to try to smear his voters and to try to smear the America First energy in our movement. So let's do all we can next week to hold them accountable as well.
Absolutely. Thanks, Matt, and thank you.